religious festival.
Oh, right. Okay, good. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to another English class here on Verbling.com. My name is Lisa, and in this hour we're going to be having a reading class. So if you have a reservation, then you can join now. If you don't have a reservation, just wait a couple of minutes, and when you see the Join Class button, then you can join. The link to the article is over in the Verbling chat over there. It is a New York Times article from one of their wellness blogs, so it has to do with well-being, health and fitness, and well-being also of the mind, so not just of the physical body. And we're going to read that together. As usual, when we do the reading classes, I'll be reading out loud, and then you'll be also reading out loud, and then I'll be going over vocabulary. Something in my eye. Going over some vocabulary that might be new for you, including maybe pointing out some grammatical structures, the use of prepositions, and things like that. So welcome to Hamid, and welcome to Andre. Welcome back, Andre. Hi.
Hi, teacher.
Are you having a Verbling day?
Yes.
That's great. Awesome. And Hamid, you've been pretty busy lately, huh?
Yes, because of the maybe religious festival, and I have no time to find the lessons.
Yeah.
And you know my situation as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you're
But,
busy.
yes, I hope I can stay in this lesson as well, because I'm not sure.
Okay.
If I leave, I am sorry from this time.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. It's okay. That's, I like to say that Verbling is a very flexible place for students. The teachers, we show up on the hour and we teach our class, and we're prepared to work with you guys. But we never actually know who's going to show up for the class, and also we understand that some people can only stay for a short amount of time, or they have to leave, or something happens with the internet connection, and so we're just trying to be really flexible and just do as much as we can. One of the good things about having a Verbling membership is that you can take classes as often as you would like. So, if you can't make full classes all the time, then you can kind of pop in and out of classes and get some, practice with your English in different ways. So that's pretty cool. As a member, that's a really great bonus that Verbling offers there. So why don't we go ahead and we can just, it's a little bit early. Sometimes I like to wait for about the first 5 minutes of the class, just because people maybe are finishing up some other classes, or they're just arriving to their computer, and so sometimes it can take a couple of minutes for people to get organized and to come into the Google Hangouts. So I like to spend the first couple of minutes saying hi to people and talking about Verbling a little bit. We often have people coming to the website for the first time, and if they click on this class, they're trying to figure out what's going on. So sometimes I give a little bit of an introduction. Also, people are new to me, so I've been teaching on Verbling for 2 years now, over 1,000 classes, and so I know a lot of Verbling students, but we have new students every day. So I'm from the United States. I live in the state of Washington, which is on the west coast of the United States. And yeah, Domingo, how are you doing?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Fine.
All right. Okay. Welcome. And yeah, Andre's new to Verbling. So Hamid is a long-time student. So Andre, if you have any questions, Hamid's a good person to ask, because he has taken quite a few classes and is very experienced, and he knows how to use the Google Hangouts really well too. So that's
it's awesome.
Yeah.
And also, I am an assistant of Lisa.
Yeah, he's one of my assistants. My main assistant, actually. I only have one. But when he's in class, he often does some quick internet research for us and puts links in the Verbling chat or in the group chat. So he helps out a lot. So great.
Okay.
And also, Lisa found a nickname for me. It is Mr. Researcher.
Mr. Researcher, yes. And he's a self-proclaimed networm too. Right? Network.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. All right. Good. Okay, let's see. We have some new people joining us also. Not new, but just right now. Lucas. Hi, Lucas. Welcome.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi. Good to have you. And Amparo. Hi, Amparo. Haven't seen you for a while.
Hi, teacher.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How have you been?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
I've been, yeah.
Good. I took a class last night, kind of late for me at 8 o'clock at night, and I saw you were in Chad's class, so I just...
Yes, I think. Hi, Lisa, but you just go to sleep, I think.
Yeah, sometimes I just pop on and see who's in class, maybe say hi, but I had to finish watching a movie with my son because Araceli and Claudio had recommended that I watched the movie Kill Bill, which...
Kill Bill. Oh.
Kill Bill.
Yes, Kill Bill. If you don't like violence, don't
Thurman?
watch that movie. Yes,
Uma Turner, yes.
Uma Thurman. I had never
Tarantino?
seen it. Yes,
Is-
Tarantino.
No, I don't like it.
It was
I
a
don't like
very...
Tarantino.
Yeah, it's hard to watch. I think he's a good storyteller, and it was very well done, but after a while it's like so ridiculous, all the blood squirting everywhere.
Yeah, as always. No,
Yeah.
I really like this guy.
Yeah, I had to close my eyes. I told my son, just tell me when it's over, then I'll keep watching the movie. But last night we were finishing up watching Kill Bill 2, which didn't have as much
Blood.
fighting in it. But yeah, so that's what I had to do last night. So I closed my computer and finished watching the movie with my son. So my son's 16 and a half, so he has watched all kinds of those crazy movies. I think it's a guy thing more than a girl thing.
I
So,
suppose so.
maybe, I don't know. Okay, hi Christian, welcome.
Hi, Lisa. How you are?
I'm doing
How are
well.
you?
Thanks, I'm good. Okay, let's go to the article. It's totally not anything related to Kill Bill. Not at all. In fact, it's it's something nice and sweet, not violent at all. It's from the New York Times. As you guys probably all know by now, New York Times is one of the main newspapers in the United States, and the website has a lot of different let's say, aspects to it or different portions of the website. So lots of different topics you can find on the New York Times. And the good thing about the New York Times is, whether or not you agree with their politics, because that's always something. But usually the writing is pretty good. It's pretty well done, pretty well written. So if you're looking for something to, practice your English and you want something that's not something that's authentic and written for, educated people in English, then the New York Times is a good place to go to find articles. Sometimes you can find some that are not too long, and other times they're kind of long. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But this comes from this page right here. So I always take it and I put it into a Google Drive document so that I can make it bigger and I can do things with it, so I can use it more as a teaching tool. But I always put the link down at the bottom, so if you want to go to the original article, you can, and then you can use it if you want to keep reading it some more or looking up words or something like that. So, okay, I'm just giving all that information because some people are new. Also, the way I do the reading class is that I read a little bit at a time first, and the reason why I do that, so one thing you could do is just close your eyes and relax and listen when I'm reading out loud to see if you understand, or you can read along with your eyes and then you'll be hearing how I'm pronouncing some words. So some of these words might be new for you. Even if you don't understand the word, you don't actually know what that word means, it's still a good idea to hear it so that you can see and hear at the same time how to pronounce it. And then, of course, everybody is going to have a chance to read out loud, and then I'll go over some vocabulary. If you have any questions during the class, just make sure your microphone is unmuted, and then you can ask me a question and I'll answer you. So yeah, we'll get started here. It's called Want to Be More Creative? That's a question. Take a walk. If you are unable to think of a catchy, creative way to present sales data or begin a newspaper column, take a walk. A brief stroll, even around your office, can significantly increase creativity, according to a handy new study. Most of us have heard by now that exercise, including walking, generally improves thinking skills, both immediately and in the longer term. Okay. So, Lucas, why don't we start with you? And hi, Aldona. I see that you came in also. Welcome.
Yes, hello, teacher. Hello, class.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead, Lucas. You can just...
If you are unable to think of a catchy, creative way to present sales data or begin a newspaper column, take a walk. A brief stroll, even around your office, can significantly increase creativity. According to a handy new study, most of us have heard by now that exercise, including walking, generally improves thinking skills, both immediately and in the longer term.
Good. Okay. So creative, to be creative, or if you want to be. So a lot of times in English we can cut back. We don't necessarily, especially in the title of a book or an article or something, we try to be really concise and short. So of course the question really is more like, do you want to be more creative? But you can cut it off. So want to be more creative? Take a walk. So creative, more, you know, having some ideas, new ideas coming into your mind. That's for artists and musicians, but anybody. Okay, so if you are unable, so I always like to just point out the un just means not. So if you are not able to think of a catchy, creative way to present sales data. Catchy here, that's a word that just means something that people really like. So for example, commercials, they usually have very catchy tunes, music, little words or little things that they say, and you find yourself repeating them later in the day, or you know, even 10 years from now you are singing the jingle from the commercial or something because it is catchy. People like how it sounds. So a catchy song or a catchy title of a book is a song that people just, it catches your attention, and so you like it and you keep it in your mind more. And then sales data, so it's just talking about, you know, a business meeting when you have to present some information about sales. Let's see, what else? All right, so, or if you're going to be writing a newspaper column, that's what we don't really talk about columns so much, but it just means the article. So when they used to have printed newspapers, which they still do, but not as much anymore, there are columns in the newspaper. So if you're a journalist, you have a column. That's your space where you get to write your article, really. Another thing I like to point out is, you know, for learning purposes, if you don't know all the words, try to use the context to understand what they're talking about, because really there's only a limited amount of possibilities when you're talking about certain things. It's not going to be unlimited. So for the example, this word, maybe you don't know what that is, but maybe you would be able to understand it because of the context. So take a walk. So they're already telling you to take a walk, and then now they say a brief stroll. So a stroll is a walk. So in English, we try not to use the same word over and over and over and over again. So we have lots of different words that basically mean the same thing. So a brief stroll or a brief walk, even around your office, can increase your creativity according to, so whenever we're reading an article about a study, we always see these two words together, according to. So it just means this is what the study says. So according to this handy is kind of a word like catchy. Handy means like it's nice that we have it at hand. It's kind of a good thing to have to prove our point. So it's a handy new study. Handy could also be useful, something that's useful to you. Okay, most of us have heard by now, you know, living in the modern day world, you've heard that exercise is a good thing. I think even people who, like me, who sit a lot, I still know that exercise is good even if I don't get to do as much as I would like. So it generally improves thinking skills immediately and in the longer term, so in the future even. Multiple studies have shown that animals and people usually perform better after exercise on tests of memory and executive function, which is essentially the ability to make decisions and organize thoughts. Although prolonged, intense exercise can cause brief mental fatigue, so don't take a math test after a marathon. Okay, Hamid.
Multiple studies have shown that animals and people usually perform better after exercise on tests of memory and executive function, which is essentially the ability to make decisions and organize thoughts. Although prolonged, intense exercise can cause a brief mental fatigue, so don't take a math test after a marathon.
Yes.
It is normal because a marathon's length is 42 kilometers.
Right. So you don't want to be trying to do something where you need your brain after you've already done so much exercise. All right. Good. All right. So people usually perform better. So to perform means they do better after they do some exercise on tests of memory. So, example, but also on this is really popular these days. If you ever read anything about the brain, you're always going to be hearing about executive function. So if you think of what a CEO does, you know, a chief executive officer, he kind of controls things, organizes things in a business. So that's kind of what this part of your brain function does. The function is what the work that this part does. And so what it's doing is making decisions and organizing your thoughts. That's called executive function. So some people in their brain, you know, some people have really good skills with that, and some people don't do it as well. So if you want to get better, exercise is a good thing, except for not prolonged exercise. So exercise that goes on and on and on. So maybe just short. You don't have to run a marathon because otherwise you might have some mental fatigue. So fatigue just means you're tired. Whenever you're tired, you are fatigued. Similarly, exercise has long been linked anecdotally to creativity. For millenniums, writers and artists have said that they develop their best ideas during a walk, although some of us also do our best procrastinating then. But little science has supported the idea that exercise aids creativity. Domingo.
Similarly,
Starting with
exercise.
Yeah, good.
Similarly, exercise has long been linked anecdotally to creativity. For millenniums, writers and artists have said that they develop their best ideas during a walk, although some of us also do our best procrastination then. But procrastinating. Sorry. But little science has support the idea that exercise aids creativity.
Good. Okay, so using the word similarly here, this is a continuation of the idea that exercise is good. It has long been linked to, so the idea is, in terms of the grammatical structure of this phrasal verb, to link, to be linked to something. So, and then they threw in this word anecdotally. An anecdote is a story. So it's not a scientific research study that's been done to prove something. It's just a story. Like you could say, oh yeah, that, you know, this happens to me every time I exercise, or yeah, my grandfather, he did this and blah, blah, blah. So that would be an anecdote or a story. So people have been telling stories about exercise being linked to or connected to creativity for millennium, so for a long time, for many, many years. Both writers and artists, they talk about how they develop, so they create their best ideas during a walk. So if you're looking for prepositions here, while you're taking a walk or during a walk, you develop great ideas. You know, that's what they're saying. That's what the stories have said, or people have told those stories. Although, so this word although, it could even mean like even though or however, in spite of. Some of us also do our best procrastinating. Who knows what procrastinating means? Anybody?
Postpone.
Uh-huh. Right. When you procrastinate, it means you don't do the things you're supposed to do. Like, for example, if you're a student and you need to turn in a paper on Friday, a lot of people wait until the last minute to do the paper, the project, and so that's called procrastinating. Instead of starting out and doing a little bit on Monday and a little bit on Tuesday and maybe finishing up by Wednesday, you procrastinate until Thursday night, and then you get it done. So maybe also going for a walk could be a little bit of procrastination. But so far, little science. So right now, he's saying up until now, we haven't had very much science or scientific studies that have supported this idea that exercise aids or helps creativity. So to aid means to help. So researchers at Stanford University recently decided to test that possibility, inspired in part by their own strolls. So again, their own walks. My advisor and I would go for walks to discuss thesis topics, said Marilee Opezo, at the time a graduate student at Stanford. And one day I thought, well, what about this? What about walking and whether it really has an effect on creativity? Okay, Christian.
Okay. So researchers at the Stanford University recently decided to test that possibility, inspired in part by their own strolls. My advisor and I go for walks to discuss this topic, said Marilee Opezo, at the time a graduate student at the Stanford. And one day I thought, well, what about this? What about walking and whether it really has an effect on creativity? Creativity.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Creativity.
Mm-hmm. Researchers, of course, those are the people who do scientific studies and research. They do these tests. And so, let's see, they decided to test that possibility to see whether or not, this is really true. People have been saying it. Now we're going to test it. So she just gives a little story here about how it happened. They were taking a walk. Thesis topics. When you are a graduate student or a PhD student, a big part of what you're doing is working on your thesis. So you have to figure out like a topic or a subject that you want to study, research, and then write about and present. So that's called your thesis. It's a pretty big project for students during their graduate school. Okay, so she thought, what about this? Whether so if, what about walking, and if or whether it really has an effect. So if it has some kind of effect, I always like to point out that this is the noun in effect, and there is a verb to effect, but it's with an A. So if you ever see, there's a difference there. And people who speak English as their native language make mistakes with this like time. So don't worry about it if you do too. With the enthusiastic support of her advisor, Daniel Schwartz, a professor in the Stanford Graduate School of Education, Dr. Opezo recruited a group of undergraduate students and set out to see if she could goose their creativity. Gathering her volunteers in a deliberately dull, unadorned room equipped with only a desk and somewhat unusually a treadmill, Dr. Opezo asked the students to sit and complete tests of creativity which in psychological circles might involve tasks like rapidly coming up with alternative uses for common objects, such as a button. Okay. Whose turn is it? Amparo?
With the enthusiastic support of her advisor, Daniel Schwartz, professor in the Stanford Graduate School of Education, Dr. Opeso recruited a group of undergraduate students and set up to see if she could goose their creativity. Gathering her volunteers in a deliberately dull, unadorned room equipped with only a desk and somewhat unusually a treadmill, Dr. Opeso asked the students to sit and complete tests of creativity, which in psychological circles might involve tasks like rapidly coming up with alternative use for common objects, such as a button.
Such as a button. All right, so enthusiastic support. So if somebody is enthusiastic, they're very excited. So the support was a very excited type of support from her advisor, the person. Your advisor is the person you're working with. They're usually the professor who's overseeing your graduate studies and your thesis project and all of that type of thing. So let's see. They recruited. We see this word a lot when we're talking about studies. It means you have to get people for your studies. So you go out and you recruit them. So you get them to come and agree to work in your study or to be one of the subjects of the study. So they were gathering up a group of undergraduate students. So undergraduate means that you're getting your bachelor's degree. You're working on your bachelor's degree. You haven't received it yet. And they set out to see. So when you set out to do something, that means that's your goal. So what they were going to try to do is see if they could goose their creativity. Did anybody have an idea what that means? Goose? If you want to goose your creativity?
Lose?
Opposite, actually.
Increase?
Yes, exact. And sometimes you might hear somebody say, let's goose it up. Let's goose it up a bit or something. It means to turn it up, like turn up the music or something. So they're trying to see if they could increase their their creativity with some exercise. So they gathered up, they got all these people together, all these volunteers, but they put them in this deliberately on purpose. If you do something deliberately, you're doing it on purpose. So that's part of their plan, and it's dull. So it's probably like brown, it's nothing, no decorations, just very plain, not necessarily ugly, but not nice and not full of colors, just very dull and plain. Unadorned, meaning there's no decorations up, so nothing on the walls or anything like that. They just had a simple desk, and somewhat unusually, because you don't usually have a treadmill. A treadmill is a machine for walking, so they had a desk and a treadmill, and then they asked students. So when you're reading, it's a good idea if you have an image in your mind. You see these students sitting down, and they're supposed to be doing some tests of creativity. So to complete, they're supposed to be finishing up some tests or trying to do these tests, which in psychological circles, that means like people who are studying these type of things, they involve tasks like rapidly coming up with alternative uses for common objects. So you're given a button, and then you have to figure out a different way to use the button, a creative way. So they're testing your creativity to you come up with just a common object. And they're doing it really fast, so rapidly or quickly. Then the participants walked on the treadmill at an easy, self-selected pace that felt comfortable. The treadmill faced a blank wall. While walking, each student repeated the creativity tests, which required about 8 minutes. For almost every student, creativity increased substantially when they walked. Most were able to generate about 60% more uses for object, and the ideas were both novel and appropriate, Dr. Opeso writes in her study, which was published this month in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, Learning, Memory, and Cognition. Okay, Aldona.
Okay, then the participants walked on the treadmill at an easy, self-selected pace that felt comfortable. The treadmill faced a blank wall. While walking, each student repeated the creativity test, which required about 8 minutes. For almost every student, creativity increased substantially when they walked. Most were able to generate about 60% more uses for an object, and the ideas were both novel and appropriate. Dr. Opeso writes in her study, which was published this month in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, Learning, Memory, and Cognition.
Yes. Okay, so then the participants, so those are the people who are the volunteers in the study, they walked on the treadmill at an easy self-selected pace. So the pace is how fast they're moving, and they self-selected. So they got to choose if they wanted to go faster or slower, whatever felt comfortable. So they're feeling comfortable just walking easily, at an easy pace, we say, on the treadmill. The treadmill faced a blank wall, so that's where it was positioned. So it was looking at a blank wall, so nothing interesting, nothing to get your mind going about different things. And while they were walking, they had to repeat the creativity tests. It took about 8 minutes, required about 8 minutes, or took about 8 minutes. And so the big results are that creativity increased substantially. So in a test, substantially means significantly. So it's important. If it was not very substantial, then there's nothing much to write about. They wouldn't be writing an article. They wouldn't be having something written in the New York Times. But they believed it was substantial because it generated or created about 60 more uses for an object. So they were, 60% more creative, perhaps you could say. And also the ideas were novel, which means new. Weren't crazy, off-the-wall type of ideas. They were useful. Maybe you could actually use them for that thing. So that study is going to be published in the journal there, that name of that journal there. But the practical import or importance of that finding would seem to be negligible if creativity were to increase only while someone was walking. Most of us cannot conduct brainstorming sessions on treadmills, so Dr. Opeso next tested whether the effects lingered after a walk had ended. She had another group of students sit for 2 consecutive sessions of test-taking and subsequently walk for about 8 minutes while tossing out ideas for object reuse. Then sit and repeat the test. All right, so this is another way that she tested them. Okay, Lucas?
But the practical import of that finding would seem to be negligible. If creativity were to increase only while someone was walking, most of us cannot conduct brainstorming sessions on treadmills. So Dr. Opeso next tested whether the effects lingered after a walk had ended. She had another group of students sit for 2 consecutive sessions of test taking and subsequently walk for about 8 minutes while tossing out ideas for object reuse. Then sit and repeat the test.
Great. Okay, so the import just means the importance. So the practical importance, that means like how could you really use this idea? It's going to be very important negligible. So negligible means not significant. So it's not going to be very practical if your creativity increases only while you're walking. And so they say, of course, most of us cannot conduct, which means to have brainstorming sessions on treadmills. So that's not practical for people. So she had to test whether, if the effects lingered. To linger means to stick around, to stay around. So like, for example, if you go to school and then school is over and you stay at school for another half an hour just talking with your friends, you are lingering. You're sticking around school. So in this case, what happens to the effects of walking? Do they stay with you in the future for a little while? And so that's what they were testing. So she had another group of the students sit for 2 consecutive sessions. So consecutive means one right after another. So one session and then another session and then subsequently. So subsequently means after that. So the 2 sessions and then a walk for about 8 minutes. And while they're walking, they are tossing out ideas. So this looks like people walking around the classroom probably or something and then telling ideas. So tossing out means they're saying, oh, how about this? You could do this with that. Oh, what about this? And they're walking while they're talking. So they're just throwing out or tossing out these ideas to somebody while they're walking around. And then they had to sit and repeat the test. Okay, so again, walking markedly improved people's ability to generate creative ideas, even when they sat down after the walk. In that case, the volunteers who had walked produced significantly more and subjectively better ideas than in their pre-exercise testing period. Finally, to examine another real-world implication of walking and creativity, Dr. Opeso moved portions of the experiment outdoors. Makes it a little more practical. Hi there, Shadu. How are you?
Yeah, hello teacher, hello everybody. I'm fine, thank you.
Did you want to read? If
Yeah,
you're ready,
it's
you can read that part there.
Again, walking markedly improved people's ability to generate creative ideas, even when they sat down after the walk. In that case, the volunteers who had walked produced significantly more and subjectively better ideas than in their pre-exercise testing period. Finally, to examine another real-world implication, I don't know.
You said it right, implication
of walking and creativity. Dr. Opeso moved portions of the experience outdoors.
Of the experiment, yeah.
Oh, sorry, experiment outdoors.
Good. Okay, so, using a lot of big words that I can explain, but mainly you just want to make sure you get the idea of what's happening here so you can track it. So walking markedly improved, so substantially, significantly, it was important. The improvement was something that you could see. All right, so it improved the ability to generate ideas, creative ideas, so to come up with. That's a phrasal verb, to come up with, or to create creative ideas. Even when they sat down afterwards. So that's the idea of the long-term effect. So even if you go for a walk, you don't lose that good, beneficial effect of the walk in terms of helping you have more creative ideas. So in that case, the volunteers, the people who had volunteered for the study, who had walked produced significantly. So again, these words interchange, you can interchange them, produced markedly more or significantly more, and subjectively better. So we have the two words objectively and subjectively. Objectively is like when you take a test and it's either right or wrong, but subjective is like you think it's better, I think it's okay, it's kind of a subjective opinion. It's your opinion, really. It's not like an objective fact. So you probably have those two similar words in your language as well. It's used a lot in research studies, subjective or objective. All right, so they had subjectively better ideas. So people thought they were better ideas than they did in the pre-exercise testing period, so before they did that exercise. And then to examine, so to test, another real-world implication. So implication means when can you really apply this kind of study? It would be outdoors, right? So going for a walk outdoors is what people actually do in real life. They don't necessarily always go for a walk on a treadmill. So they moved portions of or parts of the experiment outside, outdoors. Most people would probably guess that walking outside should be much better for creativity than pacing inside a drab office. But surprisingly, her study undermined that assumption. When volunteers strolled Stanford's pleasant, leafy campus for about 8 minutes, they generated more creative ideas than when they sat either inside or outside for the same length of time. But they were not noticeably more creative as a result of their plein air walk than when they subsequently walked on an indoor treadmill facing a blank wall. Hamid?
Most people would probably guess that walking outside should be much better for creativity than pacing inside a drab office, but surprisingly her study undermined that assumption. When volunteers strolled Stanford's pleasant, leafy campus for about 8 minutes, they generated more creative ideas than when they sat either inside or outside for the same length of time. But they were not noticeably more creative as a result of their plain air walk than when they subsequently walked on an indoor treadmill facing a blank wall.
Good. Okay. So most people would, so if you're following the different tenses, it's kind of like, the conditional here, would probably guess. So you would, if somebody asked you, you would probably guess or say that walking outside should be or would be much better for creativity than pacing inside a drab office. So again, you might not know the word drab, but they already told us the word dull, and so it's the same idea. Drab just means it's not very nice, not very colorful, kind of just, an office, a plain office, a dull-looking office. So nothing creative about the office there. And pacing just means walking. So walking inside some kind of dull office there, drab office. But surprisingly, so whenever we use this, surprisingly just means like we didn't know. So we were surprised to find this out. So her study actually undermined that assumption. So the assumption is what your guess is. You think this is going to happen, that's your assumption, but then the study shows that it's not. So your assumption is undermined, so it's proven not to be true. All right, so what happened is when they strolled, so there's the past tense of to stroll, to go for a walk, and Stanford is a nice campus, so it has a lot of trees, so that leafy campus. The campus is the buildings and the trees and the area, the land where it is. It's very park-like over at Stanford. It's in California. It's where the founders of Verbling went to school, actually. They generated more creative ideas when they sat either inside or outside. But the whole point was that they were not more creative. The ideas were not noticeably or markedly or significantly more creative than going for, as when they went for a walk. As when they were inside. So basically, when they so again, subsequently just means afterwards in terms of the time period when it happened. Subsequently walked on an indoor treadmill facing a blank wall. So again, they were creative, but not more creative. It really seems that it's the walking that matters in terms of spurring creativity, Dr. Opeso said, and not the setting. Just how a brief casual stroll alters the various mental processes related to creativity remains unclear, Dr. Opeso added. This is an acute effect, she said, making it distinct from any long-term physiological changes that exercise might produce inside the human brain. It may be that walking improves mood as its primary effect, she said, and creativity blooms more easily within a buoyed up mind. A buoyed up mind. Okay, Domingo. Your microphone's muted, Domingo. There you
go. Just no. It's really seem that is the walking the matter in terms of creativity. I heard echo.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
You still here?
Okay. Yes. It really seems that it's the walking that matter in terms of sparring creativity. Dr. Opeso said, and not the setting. Just how a brief, casual stroll the various mental processes related to creativity remain unclear, Dr. Opeso added. This is an acute effect, she says, making it distinct from any long-term psychological changes that exercise might produce inside the human brain. It may be that walking improves mood and its primary effect, she says, and creativity blooms more easily within a bowed-up mind.
Okay, yes. So here, she's basically saying it's walking that matters. So something matters means it's important. So it's the walking that is actually important in terms of spurring creativity. Spurring means generating, making creativity happen more. Not the setting, not the surroundings. If you look at the picture that Hamid just put up for the slideshow of Stanford, it's a nice campus there, but that doesn't really help you become more creative. It's just the walking. So a casual stroll or a nice easy walk alters or changes your various mental processes related to creativity, but they don't know how still. So just how it is done remains unclear. So it still is not very clear how it happens. They just see that it does happen, and it's an acute effect. So something that does not last very long. It's a short-term effect. There might be other long-term physiological changes that could happen, but they're not talking about those. Also, it could just be that when you go for a walk, your mood improves, so you feel better. Maybe you were grumpy or you were kind of irritable or something, and then when you take a walk, you start feeling better. So maybe that's it, because they say creativity blooms. So when you think of flowers blooming or blossoming, it grows more easily with a buoyed up mind. So a buoy, it's funny because we just read this yesterday in an article from the New York Times, so it's something they definitely use. This is a buoy. Okay, and so when you think of a buoy, it's being held up, it's floating on the water. So the way that this word is being used here, this you could say a phrasal verb, buoyed up, it means like your mind is being helped by your mood. So your mind feels better. You can be more creative if you feel like supported or something like that. Okay, so or walking may divert energy that otherwise would be devoted, intentionally or not, to damping down wild creative thought, she said. I think it's possible that walking may allow the brain to break through some of its own hyper-rational filters, she said. Okay, Christian.
Okay. Walking might divert energy that otherwise would be devoted, intentionally or not, to dampen down wild creativity thought, she said. I think it is possible that walking might allow the brain to break through some of its own hyper-rational filters, she said. But those are only
Yeah, just wait. We'll give Amparo a little bit more to read.
okay.
We're kind of running out of things to read. Okay, so walking may divert energy. So when you divert something, you make it go in a different direction. So maybe your walking takes your energy and diverts it. So energy that otherwise, like if it weren't being diverted, maybe you would be using it. Devoting it or using it intentionally or not. Intentionally means on purpose to dampen down wild creative thoughts. To dampen down means to like tapping down. So you're saying, hey, that's too crazy. I can't think of those crazy ideas. And so instead you just go for a walk, But it's kind of unclear. She says, I think it's possible that walking may allow the brain to break through, actually. So you can have those creative thoughts because usually your brain is pretty rational. So you have these filters, and if you think of a filter, it like a water filter, for example, takes out all the stuff in the water that you don't want, and your brain kind of has a filter that's making sure your thoughts are kind of rational. They're not too wild and too crazy. So if you go for a walk, maybe that filter lessens, and then you can start having some more creative ideas. But those are only a few of many likely explanations, she said, adding that she would probably go for a walk later to help her come up with other plausible theories, inventive experiments through which to test them. Okay, Amparo.
But those are only a few of many likely explanations, she said, adding that she would probably go for a walk later to help her come up with other plausible theories and inventive experiments through which to test them.
Mm-hmm. So we would have to read the whole study, maybe, to understand all the things that they thought might be occurring, because they can. One thing is to observe, and then the other thing is to understand why or how something is actually happening. And in brain science, they're still trying to understand how the brain works and what why we do the things we do. But so those are only a few of the many likely or possible explanations, reasons why what's happening. And then she added. So when you add, it means you just say. So then she added, or then she said that she would probably go for a walk later to help her come up with. So again, to come up with means to generate an idea in your mind, to think about something else. You come up with ideas or thoughts, for example. Plausible. Amparo, do you know what plausible means in this sentence? If she maybe she could come up with other plausible theories.
Possible, maybe, or something that is possible to do it.
Yeah, possible. Yeah, plausible means something that could be true. It's you don't know, but you would have to maybe make another experiment. But it could be a possible theory to explain what is happening. And then she's also going to come up with some inventive or innovative new experiments through which to test them. So she's going to, this is what scientists do. They come up with ideas and then they have to make a test to figure out, are they right? Okay, we have time, so I want to hear what you guys think. First, let me ask, does anybody have a question about the language? Any there's phrasal verbs in here, prepositions, there's vocabulary, anything you want me to explain that you didn't quite get? Nope. Okay. All right, so what do you think? Aldona, what do you think about this? Does it seem kind of like obvious that walking helps creativity, or is that something new for you to learn about this? Oh, Aldona, I think she's having trouble. Amparo, what about you? walking? Does it seem like a common sense idea, or is this something new to think about?
Well, I think that depends on the kind of job that you do. Um, if you, for example, you are a writer or a painter, maybe you need to relax a little more to get out for a while, and then you can get back home with new ideas or to your office. But I think that depends on your kind of job. For example, if you are a doctor, you need just to know how the body is, but you don't need more than that. But you just need a period of relax. But it's not precisely to get new ideas, just to have a minute for escape from your job. But I think that depends on your job, definitely.
Yeah. But either way, it sounds like you would think that taking a walk is beneficial, whether or not you're more creative or whether or not it just helps you feel better and relax a little bit.
Yes, just for relax. Yes. More
Okay.
than for creative.
Christian, do you take walks during the day at all?
No, I really never thought about that. I never told take walks, but I think it's a good idea. Maybe I could give it a try.
Yeah. Well, luckily the study found that you don't have to go outside. Even if you just get up and walk around your office or your house a little bit, it could be helpful. So that's good. You don't have to get out into a park or something.
Yeah, usually when I have to solve a problem, I sit or I lay down, but I'm going to try walk around.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's a good observation. Domingo, do you ever notice what helps you solve problems or come up with a new idea? Walking, resting, doing something else?
Yes, I remember when I study in the university, I study walking.
Oh.
I don't know. I remember it the lessons more easier if
If you went for a walk.
yes,
Yeah.
I think the article is true. The research, this research really is true.
Something that you
least
found out on your
for
own.
me.
It sounds like. Yeah.
Yes, it's very good because you don't if you are sitting, studying or working, you block your body, and then you need. Now in my work, I need each hour more or less to walk to make a stroll or a brief stroll.
Take a stroll, yeah. Take a stroll. Nice. And Hamid.
Yes.
I can start to open my pedometer. Okay.
Inside home, because sometimes when I go outside, I can open my pedometer from my smartphone, so it can be a new idea for me.
Yeah, yeah. Do you usually take a couple of walks during a day?
Generally inside home, not outside home. And my parents sometimes are yelling for that. You should go and you should relax by visiting somewhere. Maybe if you change your oxygen, you can be more active.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, luckily like I said, it's a good idea to get a walk, it sounds like. Even if you don't go outside, it doesn't probably matter as much in terms of maybe changing your mood and helping you come up with some ideas to solve your problems or do something. So even just walking around your house, which is good news for me because I spend a lot of time in front of the computer. So. Okay, guys, thanks for coming and doing the reading class. I'm going to do a speaking class next if you want to talk more. This was more listening and reading and stuff, but talking is up next for me. So maybe I'll see you there, and if not, I'll see you another time. Thanks.
Thank you, teacher.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye.